All right, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my channel. This channel is for educational purposes, and we take a look at great theories of everything and go in deep and try to figure out how to use these things best for edification of your lives, our lives. And usually they are pretty obscure, probably not well known. And today is our 55th video that we've done on Daniel Ingram and his book called Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha. So this book is about all things Buddhism. He goes into really every subject, but pays a lot of attention on the models of our different states of consciousness as we go through the progress of insight, as well as the jhanas of concentration meditation. So two different kinds of meditation there, and only one of them leads to ultimate wisdom and relieving suffering. That's insight meditation. So he's been spending a lot of time there, and looking at the stages of insight, 16 stages of insight, but then also now he's looking at the jhanas, which are more like states or trance states, and they mainly apply to concentration meditation, but he's kind of arguing that they also apply to vipassana or insight meditation. And I think this is chapter 34, and so he's about to start talking about Bill Hamilton, who was a mighty meditator, American, but I believe he had some issues, kind of psychological issues, and he has now passed away. But Dr. Ingram here got a lot of important learning from Mr. Hamilton. So he's going to talk about Hamilton's model of the Vipassana jhanas right here, and we'll get into it. The Vipassana jhana model I like the most is that used by the late, great Bill Hamilton. It is the one that aligns best with my own experience and investigations, and I don't think that is just scripting or rationalization. Bill was a mighty meditator. I swear, I just said that. He was a mighty meditator. I didn't get it from this, but anyway. Bill was a mighty meditator, though he was often underappreciated in his own time and community. True, he was a quirky old bat on a good day, but he also died a tremendously seasoned scholar and self-proclaimed arahant. Arahant is kind of like a status that you gain by becoming enlightened to a certain extent. He'll explain it later in this book. A self-proclaimed arahant who had complete mastery of the formless realms. There was nothing particularly spectacular about Bill's life other than his understanding of it. And he died in poverty and obscurity, in basic denial of the severity of his pancreatic cancer. Just another reminder here that Dr. Ingram is a physician, and so I believe he brings that bias to the table. So that's really like the only place that I really disagree with him in these books is his kind of Western medicine bias. Okay. He died in poverty and obscurity and basic denial of the severity of his pancreatic cancer. Profound meditative abilities and rare insight into the three characteristics didn't give him insight into his medical condition. And I would say that they don't give him insight into medicine either, that it can be done through fasting and proper diet, that you can alleviate pancreatic cancer and everything else. And so, you know, what Ingram is saying to, in regard to Bill Hamilton, he should also say to himself that he doesn't have insight into medicine. He's being brainwashed by the medical system. But that is, you know, a topic for a different video. And that has been a topic for a different video. I think we are almost all in denial of the stark fact of our mortality to some degree. He thought that he had the time to write down many of the technical points of insight stage theory that I present here, but he didn't. So I have done my best to pass on what I have understood of what he taught me. And I very much appreciate that. I have never met anyone who had given the question of the Vipassana jhanas more consideration, and his fascination with complex models was remarkable. A quick digression here about Bill, as I did dedicate this book to his memory. Bill Hamilton was not only a meditation master, he was also a rogue teacher and basically felt like an outcast from the modern international Vipassana community, despite occasionally being a part of it by writing the book Saints and Psychopaths, highly recommended, and founding the Dharma Seed tape library, which would later become the dharmaseed.org. One word, Dharma with the D-H, A-R-M-A-S-E-E-D. Bill was too smart, too uncompromising, too learned, too dedicated to undiluted Dharma and absolute mastery to be a popular mainstream teacher. He didn't teach to make people feel good about themselves or win friends. His obscurity was a tragic loss for the many people who didn't know about him. However, for the few of us who knew him and were willing to accept the fact that he was an eccentric, wary, sensitive, quirky, idiosyncratic, sometimes naive, yet sometimes paranoid dude, Bill Hamilton was just what we were looking for. Bill seemed to live for the sole purpose of sharing his experience of Dharma, rather than for flying around the world making money or being popular. Unlike the few other Western Dharma teachers with his level of mastery, you could call Bill on the phone and talk for hours about this stuff, and then you could do it again. His very unpopularity made him a true and accessible teacher. The other remarkable things about Bill were that he would talk about actual mastery, though you had to drag it out of him. He had high standards that I found quite refreshing. Bill also taught in an unusual way. His style was basically to seem extremely skeptical that any of your descriptions of any experiences could really have anything to do with the attainment of anything. I personally found this quite irritating, but it had the positive effect of making his students question deeply whether they were really experiencing what they thought or claimed they were, and to look more deeply at the truth of each moment. It also served as a helpful counterbalance to his interest in models, and specifically named levels of attainment. Part of my fantasy is that a bit of his edge, uncompromising attitude, and deep understanding may have come through in this work. Though let me be clear that Bill never let on that he was particularly impressed with anything I ever described in my own practice. I talk more about my relationship with Bill later. Bill also provided a solution to the endless problem of those who would war over the term jhana and what it means to be in jhana. For Bill, it wasn't that some low-level, quiet, and blissful state was jhana, or that something lasting 24 hours where your body is gone and all that pervades is clear light was jhana, but that all of that was some flavor of jhana, and it needed more qualifiers to really explain and describe it. So, in Bill's very thorough, nuanced, progressive, and intricate way of thinking, lots of things could be jhana, and nearly any meditative state could be explained in terms of something to do with jhanas. My appreciation of hard jhanas, soft jhanas, vibratory jhanas, stable jhanas, very deep jhanas, formless aspects showing up in earlier jhanas, kasana-based jhanas, jhanas that fuse various jhanic qualities in unusual combinations, the subparts and subparts of the development of each jhana, and how the same jhana can appear superficially very different when it was arrived at with a different object as the focus of that jhana, come from practice based on Bill's vast and sophisticated way of thinking about jhanas. For this and many other excellent teachings, he inspired deep respect and gratitude. Back to discussing Bill's Vipassana jhana model. The table below explains which jhanas, and has what is that called? A tilde over the first N. So I don't know. Jnanas is what I would say, but it's spelled N-A-N-A-S. And those are the Vipassana jhanas, or the way I understand it. Fall into which Vipassana jhanas, and is a rearrangement. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, so we'll see. And is a rearrangement of the table in the beginning of the chapter on the progress of insight. So, the jnanas are the stages of insight, so the 16 stages. So, for Vipassana jhana, the first Vipassana jhana for Hamilton includes the first three jnanas, mind and body, cause and effect, and the three characteristics. And remembering that the three characteristics are what we're investigating for, our sense impressions and our mental impressions for the three characteristics of impermanence, dissatisfactoriness or suffering, and no self. And all of our sensations have those characteristics, even though sometimes they seem solid, they seem pleasurable, they seem like they are you. Those are the three illusions. Okay, so the first jhana is those three states, mind and body, cause and effect, and the three characteristics. Then the second Vipassana jhana includes just the fourth jnana, the arising and passing away stage. And then the third Vipassana jhana includes the entire dark night, stages 5 through 10. 5, dissolution. 6, fear. 7, misery. 8, disgust. 9, desire for deliverance. And 10, reobservation. And then the 4th through 7th / 8th jhanas Vipassana jhanas represent everything from stages 11 through 14. 11 equanimity, 12 conformity, 13 change of lineage, and 14 path. But those last three are just instantaneous almost. They each last like a sixth of a second or something. So, and the 5th through 8 jhanas are the formless jhanas. So, you know, there's that. Maybe we're only talking about the 4th. He says 4th, and then in parentheses it says through 7th, 8th. Okay, so let's see what he has to say about that layout. Thus, when in each of those jhanas, we can learn something from its jhana aspect. And when in each of the jhanas, we can notice what insight territory is available there. Further, as the division between shamatha and vipassana is not nearly as straightforward as some make it out to be, there typically is a lot of natural movement back and forth that can occur between vipassana jhanas and shamatha jhanas, even when trying to keep to just one side. And again, you stay to one side, so you stay to the insight side if you are investigating the 3 characteristics. You stay on the shamatha side if you are trying to solidify the phenomena and meditate on an object. Specifically, mind and body and the first shamatha jhana are very close to each other. Practice gets less shamatha feeling and more vipassana feeling as cause and effect and the 3 characteristics show up. Practice gets more shamatha-esque for many during parts of the arising and passing away, as the 2nd vipassana jhana shows up. It then gets wide and cool as the 3rd vipassana jhana shows up in dissolution. Then often, but not always, diverges far into insight territory for the later part of that 3rd vipassana jhana in the later part of the dark night, fear through reobservation. Practice generally gets more balanced between shamatha and vipassana in equanimity in the 4th vipassana jhana. Finally, a perfect balance of shamatha and vipassana occurs in conformity. More generally, as the 3 characteristics are always presenting themselves in all experiences, even in seemingly stable shamatha-heavy territory, those with strong mindfulness and concentration may have to work to avoid perceiving them. Also, those doing strong insight practice may again and again chance into territory that has a more shamatha feel, and if they are expecting their practice to conform purely to the jhana's descriptions, they may get lost or confused by this. Lastly, those who have attained at least stream entry are constantly cycling through the jhanas from the 4th to the 11th, and then perhaps to fruition. Even if they try to do pure shamatha practice, the pull towards each jhana, vipassana jhana, is strong, and they are basically always doing some fusion of shamatha and vipassana, even when they try to keep their practice purely on the shamatha side. To illustrate with the images we might notice while using a candle flame kasina, we might initially see a red dot that is bright, steady, clear, refined, and requires effort for us to attend to it in order to keep it centered and glowing brightly. That is the first jhana. However, In that jhana, we might notice all sorts of basic insights. We may notice intentions to visualize and attend to the object as part of what is going on. That is mind and body. We might notice an odd delay between our attention to the object and it recentering or getting brighter. That is cause and effect. Or some fine points about how we tweak our attention on this side and what that does to the image. As our attention grows stronger, we may notice movement starting to show itself in the object even as it is getting stronger and showing itself more clearly, while we are noticing something irritating about our sustained attention, which is the stage 3 characteristics. Stage 3. All these can occur in a mode that is clearly first jhanic, as there is a brightly glowing kasana object, and yet this is clearly vipassana, as it involves basic insights and direct sensate analysis. As our concentration grows, the red dot can acquire all sorts of intricate spinning and fluxing aspects that are typically golden in color. These also appear around it, typically green, blue, and purple, and just begin to show up on their own. Even after it seems we aren't giving much effort to the red dot, it can start glowing more brightly, showing more and more subtle, shifting rapidly fluxing aspects of itself. This is at once the second jhana, in that we have a bright object showing itself clearly, and is also the arising and passing away, as we can, in this same jhana, notice lots of rapidly scintillating details of our chosen object. When dissolution sets in, the red dot can get dark and vanish, and a black disk or void-like space in the center of our attention can start to predominate. However, we begin to notice things that are wider, deeper, more complex, and intricate. Our visual patterns can become vastly more sophisticated, elaborate, and detailed, leading to a deepening of our practice into the third jhana, as peaceful, stable, concentrated, cool breadth begins to predominate. Yet this territory is also prone to sometimes creating lots of creepy images, frustration, and other factors that are generally associated with stages of the dark night. However, we may be in a very concentrated version of that dark night in the realms of light and images rather than our standard body and emotions. For those few with very strong concentration skills, no difficult sensations might arise at all in the third vipassana jhana, and instead one may navigate straight up through this territory that many others will find difficult. In very pure, refined third vipassana jhana, keeping attention on the shifting, complex, widening images. Those with somewhat lesser but still strong degrees of concentration may find odd, changing mixtures of dark night factors, fear, etc., with more refined vipassana jhanic experiences, images, cool bliss, and broad equanimity. Those who push their minds a bit further towards the harsh end of vipassana and rapid-fire analysis, yet with very strong concentration, may instead dissolve their body totally into realms of harsh, broad, phase-distorted, vibrating abstraction, riding the far fringe of what happens when we fuse the ultra-fast, cutting power of vipassana with the depths of the third jhana. I often employed this strategy in these stages after I learned how to do this, but before I figured out how to navigate through the third Vipassana jhana to the fourth in realms of disembodied, beautiful images without the harsher elements. Finally, in the fourth jhana, vast landscapes, scenes, beings, and all sorts of elaborate three-dimensional images can arise in a vast, silent space of luminous clarity and brilliant detail. And yet it is also possible to gain insight using this as object and attain to conformity knowledge and the doors to fruition. To give another example, if we are using an internal mantra, one we simply repeat in our inner voice but do not say out loud, we may notice that at some point we shift to being able to stay with the mantra clearly and perceive it as an object, which is the first jhana, starting with mind and body. Once the mantra is clear, we may notice many aspects about the process of mentally creating the mantra, such as the stream of intentions being followed shortly behind by the string of the mantra itself, following slightly behind by the mental echo of the perception of the mantra, making what appear to be three separate streams of the mantra interpenetrate and resonate with each other. This is direct insight into cause and effect. And as the three characteristics of these streams become clear, the first jhana matures. Then the mantra will shift to presenting itself and will become very clear, as if reciting itself. This is second jhana, and we may experience arising and passing away like phenomena at this point. The mantra may become extremely beautiful in this stage, like something sung by a church choir, for example, and it may cause deep rapture to arise in the body and mind. As the practitioner shifts into third jhana, the mantra gets wide in the stereo field, complex, with interesting harmonies, if we are so inclined, and yet it may seem to be out of phase with attention, or it may seem distorted, annoying, like something that was once appealing has suddenly become irritating. We may experience dark night-related phenomena in this phase. As the shift to the fourth jhana comes, the mantra may become part of a very wide, quieter background, and as attention becomes inclusive, the mantra may become more like symbols or images or even fully formed deities. Other fourth jhana-like or high equanimity-like phenomena may occur at this point. Using the breath as object, we may enter a peaceful, stable, and pleasant state that requires effort to sustain, namely the first jhana. Still, we may gain insight from this, insight into the breath being one thing and the mechanisms of attention required to stay in with the breath another, thus entering mind and body while staying in the first jhana. We can notice that there is odd interference between what attention does and what breath does, such that when attention is smooth and matched to the breath is clear. And if attention is jittery, then the breath is jittery. In this, we may still be in the first jhana, but notice cause and effect on the breath. The breath may begin to be tight, may seem to start to do its own thing, and may even halt and jerk on its own, as in the insight stage of three characteristics. As our attention deepens, we may notice thrilling little bits of the rapidly presenting sensations that make up the breath. We enter the second jhana using the breath as object, but now the breath seems to have myriad little aspects to it, like we can suddenly perceive with a resolution that we never imagined possible. and this can be rapturous and fascinating, creating natural and nearly effortless attention as well as the profoundly enjoyable aspects that the second jhana is known for. Yet, as we see the arising and passing away of individual sensations making up the breath, this is also the arising and passing away. The breath may then appear to go down into deep places, falling far into the earth, like it is taking us underwater, expanding out and yet slowing down. And this can be extremely peaceful, subtly pleasant, and very restful if we are okay with that sort of falling into dark, cool, quiet states. Namely, the third jhana using the breath as object. Here, there is a wide range of what people may experience, but for many, it is hard not to notice some creepy elements associated with the dark night stages. Still, some will continue to notice the breath falling away, attention going out of phase, and many things vanishing and diffusing with a high degree of clear comprehension and equanimity without freaking out about it. Imagine swirling currents of black water far down in the deep ocean. This is the lesson that we can learn from the Vipassana jhanas if we remember that there are shamatha aspects we can stay with as the object of our investigations, and thus be okay even as perception dissolves and becomes extremely abstract and unfamiliar. Finally, the breath may merge with space, vanish, expand, fill attention entirely, and do all sorts of odd, vast, amazing, subtle, formless, etc. things in the fourth jhana with a moderately high degree of individual variability depending on how you practice and your attentional inclinations. By attending to the natural, vast fluctuations of whatever you find there and the subtle tensions of duality with equanimity, conformity knowledge can be attained and three doors can arise. Thus, the Vipassana jhana model can really help people line up experiences across objects, traditions, and practitioners as they get to the common ground of spiritual terrain in a more fundamental way than the jnanas may allow. As those with strong concentration abilities may dodge a lot of the emotional side effects that are emphasized by that map, those using different objects may have such seemingly different pathways.